Mark Goodwin from Equal Parts Education. I'm a teacher, trainer, and coach. I work with young people across a number of schools, all ages, all phases, in mainstream, alternative, and special. But I suppose I have a reputation for engaging with young people that really don't get school, really don't like school, have stopped engaging with school. And that means that overwhelmingly my work is with young lads. Young lads are disproportionately represented in the group, as they are in many other parts of society when things go wrong. They're overrepresented out of school. And that means my work with them is, it's mainly with young lads. And people say, well, what do you do? What do you do to get them back on track? What do you do to get these difficult young lads back on track? And the first thing I say is that don't call them difficult. Lads get labelled very quickly, naughty, disengaged, bad. And they'll live down to those labels. So the first thing I do is to start to shift the perception of themselves. I personally have to accept that they need something different from me. They may show up in an aggressive and defiant and sometimes confrontational way, but they need something different from me. And I start a series of conversations. I talk about potential. I talk about their potential. I talk about how unlimited it is, even now. Because they're still in education while they stay in education. You can have a long conversation about potential. It gives them hope. I talk about responsibility. I'm not afraid to talk about responsibility, and they have to start acknowledging that it's them. They've got themselves into this situation. It's going to take them to get them out of this situation. There'll be people there to help them, but the responsibility is theirs. And that means taking responsibility for the bad things and the good things. But I talk about relationships as well, and how the connections they form with the people around them, the teachers, other agencies, with me. Those relationships are going to help them to get back on track. So those three things start off a conversation. Now, I think there's more to it than that as well. And I'm quite happy to have a conversation about courage. Courage. That's quite old-fashioned, but hey, I'm of an age where I can talk about old-fashioned things like courage. But I talk about the courage to have goals that include generosity and service and aren't just about money. I talk about the courage to turn up and do the work, hard work, even when nobody else is doing it. I talk about the courage to accept that it's not all about them. That it's about love and kindness and generosity, and it's not just about them and their ego. I talk to them about them having the courage to engage with the imperfect struggle that is life. Like, it is difficult, but you've got to engage with it. You've got the courage to engage with it. And when you make a mistake, to acknowledge the mistake, to work with that mistake, but see that mistake as a teachable moment, learn something from it, and hopefully not repeat it. So if you start having these conversations around courage, it empowers the young lad. It does. It empowers the young lad, but it empowers them in a positive way, in a constructive way, starting to build something more positive. I talk about compassion. I try having that conversation with a young lad. But they get it. They understand. They need to trust and they need to forgive. Sometimes they need to forgive themselves first for the mistakes that they've made and not to hold on to it as guilt and shame. Furthermore, they need self-compassion to look after themselves, to take their health, their mental health and their well-being seriously, and to look after it, to have that self-compassion. They need to love unconditionally, to start to build up that capacity to do that, to love with all their heart, starting with their family, starting maybe with special people around them as well. They need to have the compassion to listen properly, to listen carefully to other people, even people they disagree with. Now, we've got courage, we've got compassion. Now, indulge me a little bit here, but I talk about cool. And not the shallow cool, the shallow cultural cool that lads often embrace, But the real call, the call to be present every day and make the most of every day, the call to avoid judgment. Society demands a judgment, a heated response to every little thing. But they need to have the call to avoid judgment, the call to collaborate more than they compete, the call to respond and not to react. Now, those three things take the conversations to a deeper level. They come in informal ways. They come around work, they come around schoolwork, they come around workshops or exercises, they come just around news items or other current affairs. But starting to have conversations around courage, compassion and call start to rebuild the lad, a different model of lad. And I was asked to do this film because it's International Men's Day. A big part of International Men's Day is positive role models, positive attributes, positive attributes of men, good men. And I believe that you can build lads into good men around these attributes. And it's there for me to demonstrate to these lads when we're down at the bottom of the cliff, we're trying to rebuild them, trying to put them together. I just wish this conversation was had at the top before they fell off the edge, because it's a powerful conversation that can build good men. And as I say to the lads, good men can finish first. They do finish first. They end up finish first in so many different ways. And on International Men's Day, I think that's a good message to share. Thank you for listening.